Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fazbear Feed podcast. My name is Voltaic Zenite, and I'll be your host for this episode. And I hope you enjoy it. This episode will be focusing on Illumix's games, FNAF AR Special Delivery. And, well, if anyone's familiar with that company, you know there's a lot of controversy within the Five Freddy's community around it. And, well, I want to give my rundown and opinion on the whole matter. But before I begin, please like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Or if you're listening to this on a podcast, just please subscribe as well, and any support to this podcast or this YouTube channel, whatever platform you're on, is very much appreciated. And heck, it will keep Freddy Fazbear at bay. I'm sure of that. Now, I haven't exactly scripted this video, and the reason why is because I feel I should give my honest opinion. And while sure, a script can do the exact same thing, I just am not sure if I can get all my words on one script. I'm not sure. I just want to express my opinion without. I want to get like what's on my mind immediately, if that makes any sense. To start, I guess I'll start by explaining my, beginning to Illumix and how I reacted to Five Nights at Freddy's AR Special Delivery's release. Or, for short, FNAF AR. Scott Cawthon, before his retirement, actually put the responsibility of Five Nights at Freddy's AR onto a new gaming studio called Illumix. And this is actually their first game. And, of course, I know first games can end up having bumpy starts, but for their first game, this was actually really, really good. Well, I mean, at a beginning standpoint. I'll explain it as we further go down this episode. Pretty much, this game is exclusively to mobile devices. Not every single one, mainly ones that are, optimized for devices. And that's actually been a huge problem to some people who actually want to play the game, that even with high enough technology, or, mobile device, even then they still can't play the game, and that is unfortunate. But, around the time, people were really excited. Some a bit disappointed that, they would probably need to get another device in order to play it. But, most people were excited because most of them did actually end up having a device, or at least I believe most, that actually ended up, being able to play the game. Anyways, I'll get straight to the point. When I first got Five Nights at Freddy's AR, the game was actually pretty good for a start. You got characters like Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, Baby, and Springtrap. And those were the only characters in the game. All their mechanics were technically the same. There was a few slight differences in how they behaved during gameplay. But, anyways, either way, people loved the game. And, pretty much, people praised Illumix for making such a great game. And pretty much you just, point your phone around the room, trying to find an invisible animatronic, tracking it by its static on the screen, and if it charges at you, without just being invisible, you shock it, and, shock it once, and boom, you win. And of course, the difficulty can get, difficult the more you beat the characters. Because back then, the game followed by a streak system. It was only during the holidays, around its first Christmas, with the game released, that things actually got really more interesting than the actual release. It was then that they released a skin, or in their game, technically a new character, called Freddy Fazbear, which is basically an ice version of Freddy Fazbear, where instead of holding a mic, he's holding an ice pick. And honestly, people love this character. Even if it's technically a skin with personality, in a way, with its own CPU and own behavior, people love this character. I mean, it was technically the game's first skin next to Shamrock Freddy from St. Patrick's Day. And of course, after Freddy Fazbear eventually came their first, updated character. Not a skin, but an actual character. Toy Chica, where they actually introduced the mask mechanic, to where if an animatronic's probably facing you, you can put the animatronic, mask over you, and it could probably disappear, depending on its mechanics. And as the game went forward, more skins came out, and some characters here and there. For characters, we got Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, Mangle. Well, actually, come to think about it, we didn't get Mangle until, like, a little bit farther on. But point is, we eventually did get Mangle. But, a majority of what we got of more than characters, though, was skins. Like, from Easter, we got Chocolate Bonnie, Easter Bonnie, and, actually, it was just pretty much just Bonnie, I think. I may be wrong about that. But, pretty much, for a majority of every single holiday, we don't really get characters, more like we just get a continuation of more skins. And while people enjoyed it for a while, people were starting to get tired as the gameplay started to get a little dull. Some people started to get out of the game easily, because it just felt super repetitive, and just, it lost its spark after a while. Most people stayed attached to Illumix, seeing them as, just give them a chance. I mean, they're just beginning this game, technically, even though it's already technically been months. And heck, whenever they release a character, it's really spread out. They don't release a character, easily. And of course, the game had a few bugs and glitches here and there that people would get irritated by. Like, it would crash, the loading screen wouldn't actually load, characters would end up not, operating well. Like, some characters' textures would either be white, blank, or just janked up. Character animations would be for the wrong character. Like, for example, Springtrap having Freddy's workshop animation. And sometimes if you end up getting a plush suit or CPU from beating an animatronic a certain amount of times, or, just randomly, sometimes those rewards would not show up in your inventory. And that would be very frustrating, especially if you just beat Springtrap of all characters, and you end up getting his, suit or CPU. Trust me, Springtrap ain't easy. But as for Illumix, what was going on for them is they had a YouTube channel, Instagram, Twitter, etc. For the YouTube channel, they released like small little previews or trailers, mostly just previews, of upcoming skins or characters. Though of course, this was only temporary as more updates came out and that became less and less of a thing. And mainly on Twitter, people of the FNAF fanbase expressed their concern over some of the game's designs, glitches, bugs, and things they think that could improve the game. And we all thought that Illumix was actually listening to what we had to say. Heck, they themselves say they were listening to the fanbase and were happy to, fix what they could. Of course, these were lies and words of deception, as most speculate, and honestly I pretty much agree on. As a bit more time went on, Illumix and FNAF AR started to get a bit of a, I wouldn't say a bad reputation, okay, maybe a bit of a bad reputation, but also a bit of a, suspicious reputation. Like, we weren't sure if they were actually listening to the fan base, or the fans, or the community they say they, listen to. But, I mean, some things just definitely weren't right after a while. Though, one thing that Illumix was mainly good at doing better, more than, their own game, surprisingly, and, worryingly, is actually, making merch and selling it. Well, actually, they were good at making it, they weren't very good at selling it, as this example I'm about to give here. If anyone is familiar with the Five Nights at Freddy's YouTuber, ETH Goes Boom, if you don't know him, basically he makes gameplay videos of, different Five Nights at Freddy's characters with his own unique voices playing video games. And honestly, I love the channel. Though, of course, I don't really watch it nowadays, considering it doesn't really upload much nowadays, but anyways, pretty much their situation with Illumix is they actually did order stuff from Illumix. pretty much the situation goes like in these pictures right here. Hey, has anyone here ordered Five Nights at Freddy's AR merch from Illumix and actually received it? Because I ordered merch from them, some clothes I think, over a year ago, and I never received it or any information about it. Also, I also did try contacting them, though several means, and I got no response. And so it goes on, and updates on me never receiving my FNAF AR merch thing. So after another 2+ weeks of more desperate attempts to contact Illumix, they finally responded to me. Thank God. Sadly, they said they can't refund me and they told me to file a dispute with PayPal. I contacted PayPal and they immediately denied my refund request because it took me so long to get in contact with Illumix. So I'm probably never going to get my $200+ back. So, lesson learned. If you live outside the US, probably not a good idea to order FNAF AR merch. Plus, this even carries into his comments section when he said all this. For example, all of that for this? Wow, Illumix? And he responds, sadly, yeah. And it took them around 8 months to finally respond to me, lol. 8 months. Listen, I may not own a business or anything, but I'm pretty sure businesses like Illumix that are handling, transactions and, money-related stuff, like, shouldn't there be like a customer service thing to where if someone emails a complaint like this, that they should respond immediately? Nonetheless, 8 months later, like, what in the actual heck? I mean, for Pete's sake. Oh my gosh. And as far as I know, that's how the, situation went. No really, good, solution. I mean, unless there's something I missed, and that ETH Goes Boom did end up getting the merch he ordered. But nonetheless, this is just, even how this went down, this is just not professional of Illumix. Oh, and speaking of being not very professional, there, was another situation involving, gameplay actually. Who here knows the voice actor of Ballora or knows of her? Well, Michelle Amos, the voice actor of Ballora, was actually going to voice Ballora in FNAF AR. And when fans were curious if she actually had, voice lines for the role of Ballora in, Special Delivery, her response was, yes, I have talked to both. Illumix was scheduled to have me voice something. Then they bailed. Send them a message and express your feelings. Now, the fact that, Illumix had plans to have Michelle Amos voice Ballora once again, in Five Nights at Freddy's Special Delivery, and only to bail on her when the opportunity was open, and not even give Ballora a voice at all, just have her, move around the gameplay with a music box and that's it. Many were not only enraged, but also extremely confused, as, some have, a few ideas on why Illumix would do this, but mainly were just confused on why they would pull an action like this that, to many seemed pretty darn scummy. And the real question is, how far would Illumix's scummy actions go far? Like, how much would they end up doing until the whole fan base would turn on them? And of course, it doesn't end there. Of course, we have this rumored information that may or may not be true, so take it with a grain of salt, that was provided by Tyler Land from Twitter and YouTube. And I've actually seen this guy's content. Tyler Land is very, he's a great YouTuber, and seriously, go subscribe to him. No regrets if you're a FNAF fan. Pretty much, this is what he had to say in this tweet. This screenshot was going around that a former Illumix employee had quit, was exposing the company for what it truly is. I put rumored because it still hasn't been confirmed to be real or not. And upon closer inspection upon the image, here's what it has to say. Terrible company in every way possible, starting from the top and moving consistently throughout. Pros. Location. A few of the people are talented at what they do, supposed to be doing. Nice open workspace. It is very difficult to come up with positive things to say, given the extent of the truth, which is worse than toxic. Cons? The place is a madhouse. People are daft. The environment is toxic. The founder, CEO, has never been in the industry, is 26, and it is her first job. Does not like video games. It is a gaming company, and much more. And sorry if I say the name wrong here. Kiran Sinha does not know how to and does not execute on running a successful company from being honest with employees. Arbitrarily, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Even when things are critical. To being completely disingenuous to outright lying. I don't know how she continues to fool investors. The employee morale is terrible, and there is an inordinate amount of infighting. The talent pool, for the most part, is subpar, and the employees as a whole do not follow on their commitments and responsibilities. Again, this comes directly from the top. Considering she is so inexperienced, Kiran Sinha does not partner with the teams or anyone in the industry due to, in my opinion, her ego. Their differences in salaries that I've heard about are severely below industry standards, as well as being inconsistent throughout the teams. The attrition rate is incredibly high, though understandable. It's complete chaos, which makes sense due to the lack of communication between Kiran Sinha and the teams, combined with the fact that there is no schedules or roadmaps. It's all based on Kiran's gut feeling. Do not work at Illumix, stay away. Advice to management. Hire competently. Hire to hire competently. Hire someone to run the studio. Defer to subject matter experts and develop and use decent morals. Be honest and straightforward. Be proactive and team with all. Do not build alliances and, do the right thing as opposed to listening to the few that drink the Kool-Aid. I honestly have no idea what that means, and I doubt that's a good thing. Now, it is highly recommended that you do take this with a grain of salt, as this is only rumored information, that this may or may not actually be an Illumix employee. So, any information in this, picture here may not actually be real. It's only speculated to be real. So, again, maybe not everything in there is entirely true. So take it with a grain of salt. But if this is all true, or mostly true on a certain standpoint, this may explain some of the behavior fans have noticed from Illumix's actions, social media-wise and gameplay-wise. For example, while many people are not, a fan of the skins nowadays, people, did appreciate that they had their own separate animations. Well, back then. As nowadays, most animations in the animatronic workshop for these certain skins are actually reused from older skins. For example, Jack O'Bonnie's, workshop animation is now Melted Chocolate Bonnie's animation. Same for Toy Bonnie to Sunken Toy Bonnie, Scorched Chica with Little Red Riding Chica. I forgot the entire name, but basically it's like Little Red Riding Hood Chica. Point is, animations were ended up being reused for certain skins, and while this shouldn't be a huge deal, it did seem surprising, as eventually we did learn that a principal animator working for Illumix no longer works there anymore. Now, chances are, it could totally not be related to the message from before involving the Illumix employee and their hardships. But point is, Illumix doesn't have this worker anymore, and that probably explains why a good amount of animations ended up being reused for other, skins. Of course, this isn't a huge deal, but it is, something for the fans to think on. In fact, probably the same employee or another employee, possibly, I'm not entirely sure, has released information that went into an article that no longer exists due to Illumix is, interfering, that shows, old, pictures and screenshots of work in progress stuff before FNAF AR's release and even around it. I mean, heck, shown in these pictures, we were actually close to getting a totally different plush trap and, Funtime Freddy, and possibly Lefty as shown in the presents picture on screen where Lefty's, icon is inverted. The point is, it seems like, Plush Trap, Funtime Freddy, and Lefty were actually going to be in the game at once, at one point. Though, of course, I know Plush Trap is in the game now, but, his textures and probably behavior would have been totally different. He might have actually gotten a voice, who knows? Plus, just gonna add this in real quick, another sign of Illumix's laziness, surprisingly, is going to their merch, to which they actually profit highly on, other than their game, to where I think this is a t-shirt design of the Springtrap Curse skin on a t-shirt. It's called Springtrap Spree Curse Skin. And, what people really got upset about is this is actually just Springtrap's Curse skin model just T-posing. No expression, no arm movement. Now sure, it's just the face, but people can easily tell it's a T-posing, Springtrap. And reason why that's a deal is because for people who, don't model or, don't use Blender or Maya or, SFM, pretty much every single model, mainly in FNAF, or in general, always poses immediately when you spawn them in as a T. And for Illumix, they didn't even bother to pose Springtrap on this shirt or design. And honestly, even fans started to make their own designs that looked way better. And the fact that the fans themselves can make something better than the gaming company making this stuff, I mean, honestly, for the FNAF community, it doesn't shock me. But just the situation in general is shocking. And of course, nearing the end of the podcast episode, we're actually going to get into the last huge gameplay update that Illumix was hyping so much for, only for fans to be majorly disappointed. The new gameplay update introduced, a new UI, completely reinvented the way you challenge animatronics in the game. Of course, didn't change the basic gameplay of, shocking them to stop them, but took a whole different meaning with it, to where instead of one shock, you have to take a certain amount of shocks in order to stop them. Sort of like a boss level, as now the animatronics themselves have health bars. Now, there's very many difficult things to take into account with this update. As seen in many gameplay videos featuring this new UI, while the design is pretty great, the actual, impact, the use of the gameplay was not very good. As in many gameplay videos, and heck, I've played the game myself, usually when you have the new UI and you shock an animatronic, most likely, and most of the time, barely any health gets off. So most likely you'll be probably spending like more than 15 minutes trying to beat one animatronic, which usually takes way less back in the older UI. And considering the challenging characters like Springtrap or Baby, and that being their health and how it works, I mean, sure, they're tough characters, but if it takes literally 20 shocks that would rarely happen to, you know, finish them off and barely get anything good other than like a few screws and remnant, you know, fragments or whatever. You know, basically basic rewards, even though you beat a hard character. Even that, it's just frustrating. Even then, you get this kind of health bar with, you know, an Endo or Freddy Fazbear. Basic, like, easy characters. Oh, and that ain't, you know, the worst of it. As Illumix decided to add something to the update that they thought was a great idea. Loot boxes. If anyone knows, you know, anything about EA or, you know, Star Wars Battlefront 2 or something like that, and how loot boxes work, you know that loot boxes are terrible. You're basically paying a lot of money, you know, like, I don't know, like, I guess a lot considering like maybe $20 or $39 or so, for a chance at getting something good, though most of the time probably getting something pretty mediocre. It's basically like a version of gambling for gamers, and people end up hating it so much because why pay for a chance to get something good when most of the time you're going to get something pretty darn, you know, lackluster. Of course, these loot boxes consisted of mainly power-ups, boosts, and, you know, what they call a platinum buff package, for example, to where the game seems more to pay to play sort of thing. Like, they literally went with like, yes, our game's free, but in order to actually, you know, go further into the game and actually be good at it, you gotta pay money. And here's the thing, the game actually has its own currency, Faz coins. And while sure, the platinum buff package shown, you know, on screen is actually, you know, costing Faz coins, you know, things such as, you know, skins or, you know, other things in the store actually cost legit money, which honestly seems kind of ridiculous considering, like, the only time you really get a chance to fight a skin is during an event and you just get it in like a gift box. One lore, a chance to get the character, which, you know, due to some bugs in the game, chances are the lore may not work and you'll probably never get to face the character. And of course, even with the buffs, in that, you know, ridiculous health bar I talked about earlier, you may not even beat the character. So you literally spend so much money for a chance to win at, you know, part of the game. And it's infuriating, especially when even in the UI, most of the time, doesn't even work for most characters. Heck, in the gameplay right now, I'm sure, like, you'll rarely get to use the new UI. You're basically just shocking animatronics one time, and while I honestly prefer that at the moment, rather than just taking 100 shocks to an animatronic skull, the point is, the game's just really broken, and Illumix says they're fixing things, but from what I've seen, and many people seem to see, they aren't. They aren't even listening to the fans, unfortunately. And also, even though they have a, you know, fictional currency in the game called Faz coins, it is really hard to get Faz coins. It's like, you need so much in order to get something so small, like as like one skin, though it's just, it's difficult. Because whenever you get Faz coins, sure you can get them by watching an ad, but you get so little, like 5 or 2 Faz coins, when really, you need a really huge, like you need somewhere in the thousands, like half 2,000 or something Faz coins in order to get like a simple skin, and maybe a few lures. It's ridiculous. And even then, yes, you can buy Faz coins. That's where they get you. Okay, because like, here's the thing, the easiest way to get Faz coins is buying them with real money. And of course, Illumix says, hey, you can use Faz coins. Well, here's the thing, how do you get a lot of Faz coins easily, you know, before a certain event ends? Like, you want Golden Freddy so bad, but in order to get him, you have to have a certain amount of Faz coins before he's gone for the season. And trust me, it ain't easy to get those Faz coins unless you use a little bit of money. Cha-ching. I mean, it's just irritating at this point. But I feel the game, even in the deep ditch of a hole that it's really in right now, I still feel like it can be redeemed. That, you know, Illumix can redeem themselves and actually make their game better, like how it was from the very beginning. Like, for example, in the game, there's this thing called daily challenges, where if you do these certain challenges and complete all of them, you get a reward. But unfortunately, people aren't really doing these a lot because the rewards actually suck. Like, you don't get a lot from doing these hard challenges like fighting Circus Baby and winning. So what I would suggest is possibly, you know, for the daily challenges, present an even greater reward. Maybe instead of like a few Faz coins, maybe promise like maybe, you know, 50 Faz coins a day. Or heck, maybe 75. Because you're gonna need a lot in order to get, you know, like probably like the next skin bundle that they have planned. Or heck, maybe present a rare skin that you can't buy or anything. You can only get a specific skin if you do enough daily challenges. Or something like that. Like, don't try to make a profit off a skin if you're already making a profit off everything else. Try to make your game actually fun to play instead of have everything cost something. Like, I understand it's a mobile game that's free, but when it comes to Five Nights at Freddy's, most, franchises that actually have a game, like Star Wars or something like that, I feel you need to, connect with the fan base, communicate, ask what they want and actually listen and take into consideration of what they're saying. And, take in their ideas. I mean, you're technically not stealing an idea if they're giving it to you. I mean, as long as you credit them, I guess, but still. And also, Illumix, if you ever listen to this, I doubt you would, considering you don't even listen to most of the fan base, I'm sure. You only listen, I'm sure, to the good things that are being told to you, instead of all the criticism. But anyways, listen to the community. Don't listen to the people that are just saying good things, because while I'm sure this game still has fans, there's more people, a huge majority, that want this game to be better. Okay? And while some people are being mean about it, most people, I'm sure, are probably saying a few mean things, but honestly want the game to be better. They just are giving criticism, and you aren't taking it, as far as I'm noticing. And honestly, it's just getting exhausting at this point. FNAF AR Special Delivery has so much potential. And, heck, I didn't even talk about the emails. You don't even get any emails from the actual, here's the thing. There's actually a gameplay mechanic where you actually get emails telling you about the animatronics and their behavior, and heck, there was actually a story going on about the actual company releasing the animatronics. The game actually had a story. At least a small one. But unfortunately, it doesn't. In fact, as far as I know, the whole email gameplay system is basically just collecting digital cobwebs. Like, Glitchtrap is basically just rotting in there, holding all the lore. Basically, it's just meaningless right there at that point. Not only that, but I know you guys want to make a profit off the game you guys are making, but Illumix, you need to change your prices, okay? Like $39 or so for a skin with a few lures and maybe a tub of Faz coins. Well, that is quite a bit, okay? You concern that even the price seems too much. And here's the thing, a skin costs $9.99. So it costs about $10 to get a skin, to it costs way less to literally play the original FNAF games. I get it, it's augmented reality, so technology is definitely more, a little more advanced than Click Team. But still, lower the prices a bit. Maybe actually change the prices to legit Faz coins and make Faz coins more, achievable. Like, wow. And honestly, for anyone listening, I apologize if this started to sound a little rantish, like I'm bickering. I just wanted to give my unscripted opinion. And honestly, I hope for those who did enjoy it, I hope you guys did end up actually enjoying this episode. And, thing is, for Illumix, I did have a lot of faith in them from the beginning. Especially after Kiran Sinha, was interviewed by Dawko. The thing is, Dawko's one of my favorite Five Nights at Freddy's YouTubers. Love his songs, love his content. The guy's an optimistic genius, as far as I see. And honestly, I have nothing against Dawko at all. Okay? Love that guy. But, as for Kiran Sinha, she really needs to focus more on the game. And, honestly, from how her Instagram activity is going, mostly around, feminism a bit, I'm not entirely sure on... I don't want to get into that, that hole right there. I just think that she really needs to get more involved in the game if she isn't already. And I really hope Illumix picks up their game, picks up the pace, or, does something great with their game, instead of just ignoring the fans, even though they say they're listening, they really aren't. But, anyways, I'll just end, all my ranting and opinion giving here. But, anyways, I thank you for anyone who enjoyed this episode, and if you like even my older episodes, like The Dark Circus, or, even my origin to FNF, my very first episode to this podcast, then please, subscribe, leave a like, anything you can to help support this podcast. It would be very much great. It'd be very much appreciated, and I'd be ever so grateful. And trust me, with all that, it will definitely keep the animatronics at bay. Last thing you want is for this podcast to send an animatronic to your house for a special delivery. But still, thank you for watching, or listening. And just remember,
friends are forever.